What is up, you crazy coders? I'm Evan Bacon, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how we actually implement this D-pad and these gestures. In the last video I showed you how to build the player module, and now we will be assigning them so we can finally move around this beautiful world of ours. So I'm going to jump right in where we left off last time with our setup controls in the scene file. So we're going to do our setup gesture, find wherever that file is right here. We're going to bring in our controls, and then we're going to call touches began. You see I made these as swifty as possible. Touches began, touches moved, and touches ended. We got our event and our gesture type, and then we're going to pass those on to the control. Right over here in React Native, what you want to do is you want to create a pan responder, and that is essentially what you use to control pan gestures and touch events on a view. So we do our pan responder.create, and it's an object with these different values in it. We have on start should set pan responder. Essentially, when we touch the screen, should we use this pan responder? We have this set to true all the time. And then on pan responder grant, which is touches began, on pan responder move, touches moved, on pan responder release, and on pan responder terminated. I have those both as touches ended, but this one's more like touches canceled. And then on should block native responder. We set that to false. This one's kind of complicated, but essentially if there is a native touch responder in here, anything that's a touch responder that is running on the native side, maybe as like a driver, we're going to use that before we use this, and we don't want to block that. So anyways, that is the pan responder object in our setup gestures. What we are going to do with that now is we're going to come all the way down here into our render function. And with our 3 view, we're going to build an object. We're going to go ... this pan responder pan handlers. And this essentially sets those pan gestures to this view. Very simple. If you run this now, you should see that you have the ability to pan around the view. So the next thing we're going to want to do is the D-pad. So the D-pad, you see I've abstracted it over here into its own little variable. We're going to call this D-pad component that I have living over here. And we set the style position absolute so it floats in the bottom left hand corner. And then we have this press out, which sets our move ID, or essentially our direction type, to null. And then we have our on press, which is really an on press in. So when we start touching a button, we want to set the direction type to whatever ID gets returned from that button. That will then get passed on to this tick function. So every frame this tick function gets called, and then we update our controls with the delta time and our move or direction type. Then that will get passed into how we translate the camera around the screen. So with this D-pad, what we do is up here we're going to reference it in as such from the same folder, the components folder. Then you see over here we have our direction type that is referenced right here. This you see front, back, up, down, left, right. This is basically just an enum. Then if we go back over here, you see we've got our button and our D-pad. So the way I prototyped this D-pad was using snack.expo.io. If you're not familiar with this, it's pretty amazing. Essentially, when you load up a snack, let me load up a snack real quick. You're going to get this scan. So you can open up your Expo app, and then you scan this, and then it links it with this code over here. If you don't want to do that, you can run an Appetize emulator in the browser. It's pretty great. And then this code updates live with the app. It's really awesome. And we got some example stuff over here that we could bring in. So I'm going to go ahead. I started up this preview. Guess I got it. Then when this loads up, you see I've got my D-pad right over here. It's the same D-pad that we've got going on right here. So I'll run you through the code over here in the snack. You see we've got our default class object. It's really simple. We're bringing in some of the props, on press out, and style. So we're going to have this wrapper view, and you see I have the pointer event set to box none, which means that you can touch the children, but you can't touch this view. This one doesn't absorb any touches. And then we are assigning our style in this array. So the first style is styles.container, and then the next one is whatever prop styles that we send through, which in the actual app is going to be position absolute in bottom and left. Down here you see we have those styles. We want to set the background color to transparent, and then our height is going to be 50 times 3 and our width is 50 times 3. This is pretty hard coded in here, but essentially the buttons are 50 by 50, and then multiply it by 3. And over here we're setting box and under the pointer events again. We set our style to flex 1, align the item center, and justify content center, essentially pushing all of the stuff to the center of the view. Then for our button, on press out, we're setting that to on press out, on press, and then our ID, we're going to pass in direction type front. So when this button is pressed, it knows to pass in front all the way up the chain to the game engine. And then we're going to do that for these other middle 3 buttons, left, up, and right, and then back. So again, this is just a really amazing way to prototype really quickly, really easily. Over here we have that default button object that we make, and you see we got a render function. We have our size set here. Again, super hard coded in. I just have 50 and I subtract 4 because I want a padding of 2 between these. So for our touchable opacity, essentially you can make a view, you can wrap it in touchable opacity and it makes it clickable. And the clickable effect is that it lowers the opacity down. There's a bunch of different types of touchables that you could use, like native feedback. For Android, you could use a touchable with no feedback, and you can also use a touchable with like a highlight color behind it. And then there's also the secret touchable that makes it bounce when you press on it. I don't think it runs in this, but it's pretty sweet. So anyways, I'll have the link to this in the thing. I'm pretty sure it breaks if you push on these because the on touches aren't assigned, but I'll link you to this broken piece of trash if you want to play with it. I should also kind of show you how sweet it is by like messing with some of these values. Maybe we make the border radius to 23 and you see we're getting like these circle buttons instead, or set it to 23 again. Over here we could set like the colors differently, and we're getting different like color effects on these. Maybe we want to like, I don't know, cut one of these buttons out, and then we've just got like 2 buttons here. Whatever you want to do, you can do it, and it makes it really sweet, easy. It's great. And then you can take this code and literally copy it into the file over here. You see it's the exact same code. The only difference is I put the direction type into another file. If you're better at coding than I am, which is probably 99.100% of the population out there, then you'll probably extrapolate a lot of this code, but whatever. So that is how we create the D-pad, and then we add the D-pad to the scene right over here on top of the 3 view, and that's why we have this wrapper view going on over here, and that gives us the awesome D-pad, which should move you around up and down at this point, and the sweet gesture controls. Woo! Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to build this beautiful sky shader, which just really brings the whole thing to life. So stay tuned. Found it. Ooh. It's Friday night and I'm alone. Woo!